All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Inside in Tennis podcast. Mitch Michals here. This show, part of the Believe Network, available on all your podcast platforms. Delighted to be joining us as we talk Wimbledon, final stages, business end. So excited to see where the 2025 Wimbledon Championships end up. And here to talk about all the drama, preview the women's final, talk about these men's semifinal matchups and more. Senior tennis writer for Daily Express all the way out overseas in the UK, covering her home slam. Welcome back to the show. Now reoccurring guest, Yasmin Syed. Yasmin, always a blast. Thanks for coming back on.
It's great to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
So how's it been? And I always wanted this perspective too. I know you're young in the game, but you've covered a few Wimbledons now. How has this specific tournament been? And what's it like covering your quote unquote home slam where it means so much, obviously, to everyone, especially the people in the UK. But what's it like being like on the ground floor covering the slam happening in your backyard?
Well, in terms of covering it, it's crazy because, you know, I had my first experience here as a fan, I think, 11 years ago. And just to think now that I've been doing a few in a row is mad. And obviously being on the grounds, it's something that it's even just a day out that everyone in the country wants to do. So I think it's definitely still the tournament where you walk through the gates and you feel like the magic never dies and it's like your personal Disneyland. But in terms of covering the tournament this time, I mean, all those upsets in the first week was so much to get your head around. And yeah, it's been a crazy one. I think it's almost been the complete opposite to what we've just had at Roland Garros. But as always, we've still ended up with some great semi-finals. So
yeah, it definitely does feel, especially the women's side, which we'll get to. We saw a lot of dominoes fall early. And when there's upsets, maybe the next couple rounds aren't quite as exciting. It's just natural. But then we finish strong with the back end. It showcases the depth, too, that we have two players that we weren't expecting to be here, but are still very good. In one case, a surefire Hall of Famer. But you highlighted something else, Yasmin, is that all these majors, all these tournaments, they're 2 weeks long. The very best players in the world coming together. There's so many different storylines and little subplots that we might forget about, but that's why people like you exist, to kind of highlight them and talk to these players. And, you know, some of the pieces that I saw, like your piece on Sonay Kartal was pretty fascinating too. Not too many people know much about her. It was building to this point, right? She comes up last year, bursts onto the scene. She'd been working hard in the challenger level and the ITF level, but has her first taste of Wimbledon success. Decides, yeah, she wants more. She puts the time in, makes it all the way through the second week. And you got to highlight her and her unique story and how she's a different type of player, but an inspiration nonetheless.
yeah, she's a great character on and off the court. I've been sort of covering her rise for the last 2.5 years just because she's from the same place that I grew up in the UK. So always sort of had an eye on her. And it's just great when you get these types of stories come through, like you said, especially at the home slam. And she's been really consistent over the last year. So it'd be great to see her keep going. And it's always a sort of a pleasure and a privilege to get to share these players' stories.
Yeah, I like the story about her too, is that during COVID, she's like, I'm going to get stronger. And just kept it going. And really, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like you highlighted how, you know, she's different in the sense that there's this mindset of what a tennis player, female or male, is supposed to be like. And she's different. And obviously that's okay and encouraged. To take it a step further, Yasmin, I just like variety. Like I think it's great. You can look at any of these events, like even the final that we have on the women's side. It's great when there's different types of players. There's something for everybody. And it's cool to see different types of players match up against each other as well.
Definitely, because I think that's where all these big rivalries, that's why they're so amazing. You know, Federer, Djokovic and Nadal will have very different personalities. Sinner and Carlos have that. Swiatek and Sabalenka have that. But it's not just those top players that have it. Every single player in the draw has their own completely different story, style of play. And it's just great when you see them all against each other.
Certainly is. And the other person that you talked to, Yasmin, that I thought was cool, because we've been a fan of his for a while too. It didn't finish well in the first round, but Mpetshi Perricard, it was cool to hear his take on, you know, where he's at. Obviously, he's somebody that I think you can speak to this. He understands his strengths and what he can do on the court. I don't think he tries to go above and beyond what his capabilities are. It was an interesting match, a 2-day affair against Taylor Fritz. But I thought that was fascinating too, right? Hearing somebody young who's on the rise, who's just, like a lot of players, trying to break through.
Yeah, he's in that sort of middle ground now where he had the massive breakthrough last year and this year has sort of stalled but is remaining in that top 50, top 40 area. And you can see there's the want to push on. Obviously, when he has a draw like Taylor Fritz in the first round, it's very tough to push on and very tough to build on those points. But he was a great character and that was the first time I spoke to him as well. And yeah, it was just really great to speak to and excited to see even more of him than we've been seeing the last year.
And that's why going into majors, Yasmin, I don't know if you're the same way as me, but I always am fascinated with those ranking points to 32, 33 range, because it's that chase to get seeded. I love the format. I wouldn't reduce it. I just think that's the battle. You could have a player like Mpetshi Perricard draw Fritz early, or you can get fortunate like Belinda Bencic did, maybe not have the toughest draw. But I think you know this too, right? When players don't have the hardest draw, hardest first round matchup, it's an opportunity, right? Like you don't know if you're going to draw Alcaraz round one. If you get an opportunity, you have to take advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even those I agree, I'd never get rid of the 32 seeds, but you always get some really interesting stories of the people that just missed the cut. And also, if you're one of those people that comes up against a seed in the first round and you're unseeded, you take them out and then you've sort of got their path to the third round before you face another seed. And it's just so much opportunity. And yeah, you take one of those opportunities and who knows how far you can go.
Well, the women's semifinals today, as we record this, were extraordinary for two different reasons. One dominant performance, one just epic match. We'll start with the epic match first. It was Amanda Anisimova taking out Aryna Sabalenka. Three really thrilling sets, Yasmin. It was so fun to watch the push and pull of this matchup, and it was Anisimova getting to her first major final. Very impressive across the board, how she held on, how she went power for power, and there was no sign of fear on her and going up against the best player in the world, but also no sign of fatigue either. That might have jumped out about things I wasn't expecting to see. This was a very brutal physical matchup, but Anisimova was in it, didn't back down, and didn't wilt at all under the physical stress of this match.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the third set, when she got broken to love, you kind of feared, we've had these two amazing sets, we've had this great battle. Is it going to sort of fall away here? But then she just absolutely turned something else on, and even when it took her a few match points to get there, again, it's one of those things where she wasn't discouraged, and it was just an incredible match on both sides, and you could really see Anisimova won that. Sabalenka didn't lose that.
No, I agree completely with that, and I think, it was Sabalenka never really felt like she was in control of the match, and that had been a theme. It's another tough loss for her, but even when she got up the break early, you had the sense, okay, like you got to put some distance in between her. It's gonna be something too, right, for Sabalenka, because she has such a power advantage over most of the tour. I thought about this going in. Anisimova is one of the few players that can match power with her and is not afraid to hit to her strength. It sounds kind of crazy when you say it out loud, but whether it's the Nadal forehand or other historical, areas and shots in tennis, you can't just avoid it. Like you can't just completely avoid going to someone's strength. And Anisimova was fearless today.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think Sabalenka's already said that she almost wasn't brave enough when she normally is the brave one. And I think that is telling of the fact that she normally overpowers everyone else, but because she's playing such a power player, maybe it makes her think, I can't be that brave. And in the future, I'm sure she'll learn from this as she learned from the French. And I mean, I've been so impressive with Sabalenka this whole tournament. And I think so many tough moments that even a few weeks ago she may not have survived, she managed to do it this time. That's why, to me, again, it is Amanda that won the match, because Sabalenka, just every single point, even if something didn't go her way, was resetting, and you could tell that she wasn't bothered by it.
The backhand from Anisimova is still one of the best shots in tennis. It's just so pretty, and to watch her rear back and just paint lines with it. But she was mixing in stuff we hadn't really seen before, right? That drop shot, kind of a backhand slice act. Like, she is someone that I think there was a fear, right, too. Like when you have a player, she breaks through, wins the quarterfinal match against Pavlyuchenkova, you wonder, like, is there going to be a letdown? It's only natural, right? You get to your first Wimbledon semi, but that just wasn't the case.
Yeah, especially because it's been such a long time since she had her first semi-final, It was interesting because obviously for Sabalenka, she's also trying to get over that roadblock of just a Wimbledon semi-final. But for Anisimova, this is all new ground. But yeah, she was bringing in some completely new things, like some of the slices she was pulling out at really crucial moments. You couldn't believe she was doing it, but it worked every time. So I've been so impressed with her this whole grass season, to be honest. I think she may be the best player we've had on the grass so far, WTA side, just in terms of how consistent she's been this year. And against literally the best in the world, she showed that she was happy to mix it up.
Yeah, and the journey itself, right? Everything she's been to, still so young too, which people kind of gloss over, making the Roland Garros semifinals as a 17-year-old will do that. But Yasmin, she's just been through a lot. She took a break, and props to her for taking a break, but also she admitted this is faster. Like, she dreams big, she believes in herself, but it's faster than she expected. I think getting back as fast as she did is unbelievable because yeah, it was going to be a long road back regardless, but she is doing it at warp speed.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I think it really speaks to the fact that actually taking these breaks can be really good. And, the journey is different for everyone, but the tennis season just becomes more and more relentless every year. People are talking about 2-week masters, mandatory events, worrying about ranking points and stuff falling off. But she took herself away because she needed to. And like you said, she's so young, but because she's been around since she was 17, she'd already been on tour for probably 5 years by the time she took the break. And it's just amazing to see that you can do that, you can prioritize that, and look at how it pays off.
She's up to number 7 in the live ranking, which is could get up to number 5 if she wins the title. I agree, the breaks are good and you can work your way back, but I wouldn't expect many people to do it as fast as her. Like that'd be something. Like this is really incredible how she's able to just be back in the top 10, maybe top 5 so quickly. So props to her. Yeah, in Sabalenka's case, like, she played well, she handled the loss, I think, a little better than last time, but the thing with this too is it's a lot of scar tissue. Obviously been the most consistent player by a mile with how deep she's going into tournaments. But yeah, third tough Wimbledon semifinal loss in her history, in her young history, and third loss in a slam to one of these American players this year. So she's getting to finals, getting to semifinals, Yasmin. But the other thing too is they're targeting her. Like, she's been the best player, so there's a target squarely on her back every time someone takes the court against her.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And, she's been around. Again, she's another one where she's only 27, but she's been around now for probably 8-ish, maybe more years. So people know her game now, and the target is bigger every time. And I think, you see Madison Keys do that at the beginning of the year, and everyone else thinks, okay, well, then I can do it too. And it's really tough for Sabalenka because all of these losses at the slams this year have been really tight, and you would rather have that than, I'm sure, be double bageled. But at the same time, it must be so frustrating to feel that close and yet end up being so far away.
Yeah, the second that you lose, and it doesn't happen much, she's that great of a player, but the other teams, the other players are going to be taking that tape, studying it, finding areas that maybe they can exploit. It's a brutal game, but yeah, Anisimova in the Wimbledon final where she'll meet Iga Swiatek, Yasmin, thoroughly dominant today. No notes, just amazing play by Iga. It was relentless. You saw what she could do, and you really saw her journey on grass court, right? Like, from winning it as a Wimbledon junior, winning juniors Wimbledon, the issues she's had as a pro, obviously prioritizing clay and having success there. But given all that she's been through, all the time she's put in with new coach Wim Fissette, how she was building to this point, it was just a masterclass. Everything she did, coming to net, putting depth on her shots, serving well. Iga was untouchable today.
And that's sort of the Iga that we came to know for a couple of years, who was just completely dominant basically everywhere apart from the grass. And I think she's only dropped one set this tournament to Katie McNally, and the rest of the tournament has just been the dominant Iga that we used to see on clay. And, she still has been so consistent this year, and it's amazing that this is almost a bad season for her, because I think barring Rome, she has still gotten to the latter stages of every tournament. But if you told someone a year ago that, Iga's just won Roland Garros 2024, but she's not going to win a title for a year, and then come Wimbledon, she'll be the number 8 seed, but now this might be her first title in over a year, you wouldn't believe it. But I think the reason she's been able to be her dominant self this week, and especially today, has been maybe because some of that pressure's off her shoulders now. She's been absolutely just getting on with business this whole tournament, and sometimes being overlooked doing it, maybe because she is a number 8 seed, maybe because we just stereotype her as, oh, she might not be, we don't see her going deep at Wimbledon, but she's just absolutely gone about it. And today was like the exclamation mark on the end of what's been an amazing 2 weeks for her already.
Completely agree with that point about being under the radar helps. It's just refreshing, right? She was in Sabalenka's position where everybody's out to get you. You're the top player. How can I beat Iga is the game plan. So coming in as a lower seed and having some things break right for her, I think it was good. What she reminded people today too, Yasmin, is she is an absolute buzzsaw when she gets a lead. It's downhill fast, and she gets to the finish line with a lead as good as anyone in tennis.
Yeah, and I think the second you start to see a sort of 3-love, 4-love, you're like, Iga's Bakery, is that coming back? You know, even, and she's especially one of those players where she'll be 5-love up, the player will be serving to stay in the match, and she can just, she knows, and she's ready to pounce on that game, and she's just so impressive when she's in those positions, and I think that's why it's been tough for her at other points this year, where maybe, you know, she's just been taken off the court by someone who she might not know as well. And but you're right, the second she's in the lead, she's just off with it.
Yeah, very few players in men's or women's tennis wear their confidence as openly, I think, and you can tell exactly when she's feeling it, and it's special to watch. So yeah, we'll preview the women's final here at the end here, but Yasmin Syed on the Inside In Tennis podcast, talking Wimbledon 2025, so much to get to. Belinda Bencic, you know, her run ends, unfortunately, with a bad taste in her mouth, Yasmin. But to get to the semifinal, to get to, you know, her first big breakthrough, it was a great run. The win over Andreeva is a great example of a strategy and a game plan working. Just didn't feel like today she had, you know, the jump. She was a little sluggish in the back end from my perspective, and ran into a hot player, as we know, could go sideways fast.
Yeah, I mean, her run has been amazing this week, and she's another one a bit like Anisimova, where, you know, just over a year ago, she welcomed her first child. This time a year ago, she was still off the tour. She only came back sort of the end of last year on ITFs, and the way she's already got back up to the top as well has been sort of unprecedented. I know we've had people like Svitolina and Serena also come back quite quickly and do big things after these pregnancy breaks, but I've just been another one where I've been so impressed with her this week, and I was surprised at the let-off today, because I think with both semi-finals today, Sabalenka and Swiatek were the favourites, but if you watch tennis, I don't think you would have been surprised if either one of them lost, given how good Anisimova and Bencic are. So it was a shame to see that let-off after everything we've seen this week, but she has so much to take from this tournament.
Yeah, I expected a little more. I know Bencic, you know, might have been fatigued. There's the emotional side. Didn't have the day off, which Iga had no problem dealing with. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, that's the thing about tennis is only one player wins. This run, when she gets time to breathe, is going to feel great, but it's going to suck right now. Like, just thinking about it for the next week is probably not going to be good.
Yeah, definitely. And I know she was dealing with some sort of like toenail issue, and they cut a hole into her shoe today so that she would have more room to sort of maneuver that. So I don't really know. I mean, again, I also don't want to take away from Iga, and Belinda hasn't mentioned this at all since the match anyway, so it may not have been a factor, but there was definitely something completely different today from the other matches. That said, if you told anyone at the start of the tournament this would be what she'd do, I'm sure she'd take it.
Yeah, I would say it was another great run. We'll see where Belinda Bencic keeps going. On the men's semifinal front, we have two matchups coming up. How we got there, mentioned on the last show, the Fritz Alcaraz lead up. But since that time, the second half of the quarterfinals took place. The big one, the big storyline, the intrigue was Ben Shelton and Jannik Sinner. Sinner handles Shelton in straight sets. There was just a lot of intrigue, right, Yasmin, before the match. What's going on with Jannik? The elbow, practice canceled. He's going to practice indoor, no witnesses. Oh, he's wearing a sleeve. But at the end of the day, he handles Ben Shelton in straight sets. And really, yeah, that's what I've come to grips with, Yasmin, is if the match starts, Sinner has that look and has that feel, there's no doubting him. I mean, maybe when he plays Alcaraz, but that's about it right now.
Yeah, I mean, even I was duped into thinking, will he take to the court? Will we only get a set? But, you know, with these top players, and again, it's going to be similar for Novak tomorrow, right? He's in the same situation now. He's cancelled a practice. But I think we can't read into those things, especially when it's these elite players, because Sinner's another one where it's not like Shelton lost that match getting nervous that he was playing Sinner. I think Sinner hit one unforced error in the first set. So that speaks to the level he manages to produce even when he is carrying something.
And Shelton had a sliver of an opening. I don't even want to call it a full one, but that first set tiebreak, he was up the mini break. The only time I thought he got tight, Yasmin, were those two service points immediately following. He made an error and then he had the double fault. You're not going to get much of an opening, so you kind of have to take advantage, and that's what we've been saying forever. I mean, you play a top player in a best-of-5 format, you have to take set one. Like, it seems like that's like a thing. And then when that went by the wayside, yeah, Sinner just turned it on, and there were no more openings for Shelton.
Yeah, and I think with Ben, it was like, he was able to serve himself out of trouble so much, but then when he was the one with the lead, he kind of couldn't use his serve to hold on to it. So for him, and I think for everyone else on the men's tour that is not Carlos, Yannick, or Novak, they need to get
Mhm.
better at those really important little moments, which is going to make the difference between them being a slam quarterfinalist or semi-finalist or being a champion.
I mean, it's these two guys right now. Obviously, Novak's still around and very live in this tournament, but what Sinner and Alcaraz have done is, taken the baton and taken the being a clear gold standard. So Shelton looks great, has gotten a lot better, but there's still miles to improve to get, and we'll see with Fritz tomorrow as well. Like Shelton's done so much to get to this point, Yasmin, but there's still clearly and evidence that he needs to play better and improve more to get to the level of the top two.
Yeah, I mean, I think his only slam losses this year have been to those two. And
Mhm.
it's almost a bit like back when you had the big three, big four. You might have been able to beat one of them in the quarterfinal, but then you've got to beat the next one in the semi, the next one in the final. And it is just, it used to be too big of an ask back then to sometimes the Berditches and people like that. And we'll see with this generation what they end up doing. But right
Yeah.
now, it is just it must be so tough for them to come up against these two
Yeah.
guys and feel like they have nothing in their arse and to deal with it.
I thought Yannick, and I don't know if it's Shelton the matchup. It might be, it might have been an ideal matchup, but it was great for him. If there is, we don't know what the situation is with the elbow, but Yasmin, if he had anything wrong, this was perfect for him. Not a lot of long rallies, very, very precise, very efficient. He wasn't out there for 3, 4 hours. He wasn't playing long rallies. So I think this was best case scenario going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those sort of matches where you just get to a tiebreaker like that. You're not really seeing any long points, and just even, you know that Ben's going to be very reliable on his serve, but even Yannick was very reliable and not really dropping any points. So it's just, once a player like that also just takes the time away from you and the set is over before you know it, then what can you do? And then Sinner advances and he's not really probably put much strain on that elbow.
Well, he gets Novak Djokovic, who survived Flavio Cobolli in 4 sets. And just a moment, too, on Cobolli, right? Like, it was impressive, not just his run to get to this point, Yasmin, but what he was able to do in this match, winning set one in a tiebreak, but also making set 3 and 4 competitive.
Yeah.
I think a lot of players would have just been satisfied, maybe not had the energy or the wherewithal to keep digging deep, but he kept it competitive. So props to Cobolli there.
Yeah, I thought it was really impressive, especially those, because even if you take the first set against someone like that, if the next couple start getting away from you and you're love three down, some people might just lose the match. But the way he just constantly came back in, it was so impressive to see, especially because this is like uncharted waters for him. He's never been this far in a slam, and to get this far and come up against, 7-time Wimbledon champion, 24-time Grand Slam champion, you could lose one-sided and it would still have been a good tournament for you, but he really never went away.
No, he didn't. I thought his athleticism shined a lot in this tournament, and that's what you see, things he can do, how he matched up, and how he was able to, similar to Novak, ramp up on the big points. But in terms of Djokovic, Yasmin, it is just impressive, his ability to recalibrate after losing a set, after dealing with somebody's, I'll put it in like boxing or combat sports terms, when he deals with somebody's best punch, he's able to sit back, reflect, okay, how did he do damage to me? How can I prevent that from happening again? And in sets 2 and beyond, it was picking up Cobolli's serve and really just finding a read on that. So that's the part of the mental stuff that I marvel at Djokovic. 38 years old, no real weaknesses still, no laziness to his game, still as efficient as ever.
The thing that's funny about Djokovic is in that match against Cobolli, he was frustrated quite a bit, even when he was leading.
He threw his
even
racket
when he
up like
managed
20
to get-
feet in the air.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, we might see it as, oh, he's turned the match around, he's going to win it now, he's in a winning position, he may literally be serving for it, but he always wants more from himself, and he's such a perfectionist, and that is why he is the champion he is with all the records he's got, is because, and to go back on your analogy, his punch is better than anyone else's, so he could take someone's, but he knows that if he wants to bring it out, he still always can.
He certainly can. And, the unfortunate thing is the third last point of the match, right? When he had match point, he slipped. And that kind of changed a lot of perspectives and how we look at this match. If that doesn't happen, we might be having different conversations. But as it stands, it looked like a pretty rough fall. You don't know what happened again. The groin was maybe an injury or maybe something that got tweaked. No practice today, which don't want to speculate to anything. Don't know if it's rest. If it is, maybe just let's lay low here mentally. Let's just like let everybody digest it their own way. But 38 years old, you got to ask that question. And I thought it was interesting too, Yasmin, on the heels of him being more open about how he trains, how he prepares at his age, how he gets his body ready to play such physical matches.
Yeah, and I think for Novak, he's controlling everything he can control. So him and his team will be so meticulous about his body, how they're stretching it out, you know, what he's eating. But I think he also now has realized that because he's 38, he needs to accept that if he gets an injury that maybe his body can't recover from, even on top of everything he's doing, then he's just going to have to accept that. Whether this is one of those cases, I hope it's not. I don't think it's going to be as bad as, let's say, Australia, but he is 38 now, and one day it will all catch up.
Yeah, one day, maybe now, but maybe not for a while. But no, and he's playing one of the best two players clearly in the world. So those men's semifinal matchups, we've got pretty much arguably the best four players in the world, especially on grass. Starting with Carlos Alcaraz taking on Taylor Fritz. Yasmin, the simple question, but maybe the impossible question, depending on how it goes, is what can Taylor Fritz do? What can he do on his end to make this match competitive?
Well, I mean, people have been taking sets from Carlos this tournament, and what I'll say is, we all know that Carlos can lose his concentration for sort of half an hour, 60 minutes. Sometimes that only costs him a break and he can get back. Sometimes that costs him a set. But when he dropped sets to Struff and Rublev, I would say that wasn't him losing his concentration. That was just them playing well. And, you know, Struff is a bit of a bogey player for him. I know he's won the majority of their meetings, but they're really close. And yeah. Struff takes a lot of sets. And then, you know, Rublev played really well in the important moments in that tiebreak that he won. So I think Fritz just needs to look at that, and maybe similar to Shelton and Jannik, because I expect Fritz to be able to serve big, right, to be able to get himself into these tie breaks. So it's when it is important points, he needs to absolutely stay right there with Carlos, put the pressure on him. You know, if Fritz has an opening, he cannot let it get away from him.
Agree with that. I mean, the easy answer too is the serve, has to serve well, and also has to shorten points. Don't want to get into a firefight from the baseline with Carlos. You're going to lose that pretty much every time. That's going to involve him having to come to net, which he has gotten a lot better on, working with Paul Annacone and Michael Russell. Like, Fritz's game at the net, while not in the elite status, is miles ahead of where it was. Like, pretty much all the aspects of his game has improved to get to this point. But don't you just feel like that first set? I mean, it's the only, like, it's if there is a chance, it has to involve Fritz taking the first set.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the first two. It's just so difficult because Carlos also hasn't lost here since, I think, 2022. He wasn't even, last time he lost here, I don't think he was a Grand Slam champion. He'd never been world number one. He was basically a kid. So for anyone to beat him here, you know, even if Carlos gets to the final and we're talking about Novak or Jannik having to play him, I still, you know, it's a big ask for anyone. So I think Taylor just needs to accept that that is a huge mountain to climb and he needs to try and climb it.
Yeah, this is the longest win streak of his career Carlos is on right now, I think. Yeah, how he looked against Norrie, that's the one where I'm like, whoa, like that's the guy. Like he's ramping up. Like this is a new Carlos. So yeah, it's going to be tough. The confidence is brimming, and he's like, these top guys know that best of five, I have more time to work with. But Fritz has played well here. I mean, really, when he pushed Nadal, wasn't able to win that match. 2021 has gotten better and better. So 2022, but still, just a lot to digest there. The other semifinal, though, Jannik Sinner, Novak Djokovic, they meet again. They've been meeting in these semifinals, it seems like, for a long time. And Novak knows the task at hand, right? That Jannik Sinner has passed him in the rankings, has upped his level, is younger, has youth on his side by a number of years. My question, though, and my wonder, it's more of a wonder, is Novak going to have something up his sleeve? This is a guy who's seen it all, who's the most comfortable of anyone on this surface by how much he's played and won here. But is there a tactic? Is there something he can do to maybe catch Sinner off guard, maybe introduce to the match?
Well, I think because he's on grass, if he just plays his sort of grass court game, I don't know. I mean, I'm so 50-50 on this one. I can't call who's going to win, and I don't want to talk about either one of them as underdogs because they're just not. But I think Novak's playing his normal Wimbledon grass court game is enough. I don't think he really needs to bring anything up, to be honest. To me, it's maybe Jannik that needs to bring something new because this is Novak's hunting ground, really.
Yeah, I just wonder with Novak being so analytical and there's his team himself, especially they're so studious with what they see. If they pick up anything on Sinner, I do think that similar to what I said with Fritz is if he serves well, if he shortens points, because in that Dimitrov match before the unfortunate injury, Sinner was the one struggling to get in on Grigor's serve. You know, it wasn't long rallies that were doing it in because in long rallies, he's the best. So I wonder, yeah, the surface change is a real thing, right? Like when they played in Roland Garros, Djokovic, by his admission, and I completely agree, did not play a bad match. Sinner was just too tough there. I'm so curious to see, especially given the fact that Djokovic beat him a couple of times before Sinner became the Sinner we see now, how this rematch on grass shapes out.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, even though Jannik is one of the best players over these longer rallies, Novak has won the longest rallies of the tournament so far. So I think some of the things that are Sinner's biggest weapons that Sinner may now have over Djokovic, Djokovic probably has it over him here.
He does, and I think, crazy to say, but Djokovic is going to have the crowd.
Yeah,
so he'll have that, you know, and having that support, having people there. If this is tight, like if it, you know, Roland Garros, if it would have been 1-1, I wonder what that would have looked like. So if it's a split set situation instead of 2-up, it could change. It does feel like this is the last best chance he'll have. Like not the last chance, as I said last time, but I just think that given form, given the fact that age kind of slopes downward, and there might be questions still with Sinner. So I just think this might be it. And I do think if it is Djokovic Alcaraz round 3, maybe last year with the injury isn't the same match we see, given that Djokovic has had success against Carlos that he doesn't have against Sinner.
Yeah, I completely agree. This feels like the best chance he will now have. I mean, he could prove us all wrong, but I think just the fact that it's grass, the fact that Yannick's a bit injured, and I also kind of, before the tournament started and we had all these random injuries and stuff in the mix, based off of Novak's performance this year at the Slams, he has at least one big win in him, right? He beat Carlos in Oz, he beat Zverev in the French, so this is sort of his first massive matchup, and if it's the first one, I think he can win it. If he goes on to the second one, and if it does end up being a rematch with Carlos in the final, I'm very, very interested to see if Novak can beat them back to back. And I think if he can do it anywhere, he can do it here now.
Well, it's no shortage of storylines in that one. Also, Jannik hasn't won these long matches. I know the Roland Garros final was incredible, and it wasn't a physical issue. Alcaraz just played lights out when it mattered. But historically, Yasmin, long matches have not been Jannik Sinner's friend, so something else to consider.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Novak needs to really make it this sort of physical grass court battle. Again, like you said, with the crowd, they're all going to be on his side. And I think some of those really tight moments that at the French Open went Yannick's way, this time they could go Novak's way because he's not played a really, really top player up until now. So he's a little bit fresher, and because the crowd will be on his side, and because he takes, you know, he says every single time in his on-court interview that this was my dream tournament, this is my dream court. So I think all those little factors together, the important points this time could go Novak's way.
Cannot wait for that one and the women's final that we know. Amanda Anisimova, Iga Swiatek, just like we all predicted, these two players in the final of Wimbledon. One of these women is going to be a Wimbledon champion for life. She's going to be a member of the All England Club. It's going to be they're going to get to meet royalty. They're going to walk up and experience all that. But on the court, it's going to be a battle. Iga opens up as a pretty solid favorite in this one, Yasmin, and I understand why, but what can Amanda do? How can Amanda match up against her, a elite player, but way different than what she had to deal with Sabalenka today?
I think the difficult thing for Amanda is that she has never played Iga on the Pro Tour, and playing Iga is so tough that you maybe need to do it for half an hour to know what you're dealing with. So I think Amanda needs to really keep the match close for the first set, like maybe get to a tie break, just kind of, she really needs to stay hot on Iga's heels for the first half hour so she knows what she's dealing with. And I mean, she can look at sort of what someone like Sabalenka does against her, because Amanda is that power player. So I think it's going to be whether or not it's her or her team that do it, because they have no experience of playing each other. It's got to be watching a lot of tapes. It's just got to be, she can't give Iga a look in her service games.
Yeah, and the start, like not just even the set, right? Don't fall down 3-love like Bencic did today, and that's part of it. But yeah, if Iga serves buzzing, if she's mixing up variety, Iga doesn't get enough credit for being the athlete that she is. That's where you'll start to see it. But both these players have proved they can win physical matchups. They can go 3. They can be down in the matchup. So I think, I mean, it's a cop-out, Yasmin, but I'm not expecting a complete blitzing one way or the other. I'm not expecting one-way traffic.
No, I don't think I am. And it's funny because we keep getting these Wimbledon finals with people that we don't necessarily expect to see at the beginning of the tournament. That said, I don't think you expect anyone, because Wimbledon has been won by different people for the last sort of 9 years. So I am expecting it to be tight, whether Anisimova does go that early breakdown and maybe loses the first set before she comes back into it. But I don't think she's going to go down without a fight.
Iga is in her 6th major final. She's 5-0 in the previous 5, so undefeated major finals. And Anisimova is looking to be the 3rd different American woman to win a major this year. So could the Americans sweep the slams? Could they do it with 4 different women? Those are the storylines we're talking about over here. Yeah,
I mean, look, if Amanda does it, then it is a very real possibility, because, you can back someone like Pegula to go and win the US.
Well, Pegula, a little Emma Navarro. I mean, they got the depth there. It'd be nice if there's that kind of depth on the men's side, but it's just 2 really tough challenges right now to get to the top. But exciting. I can't wait to see, because we've got semifinal action Friday, women's final Saturday, men's final Sunday. Always promises to deliver in the mecca of tennis, which is the All England Club. Yasmin Syed, this was a blast. Always fun to have you on the podcast. Of course, we'll be doing this again. But what's next for you at Daily Express or other tennis events or pieces that you're covering or working on?
I mean, I've still got some nice Wimbledon stuff to go out, hopefully over finals weekend, some stuff to go out sort of the week after. I mean, in terms of what's next, hopefully a break and a bit of a holiday, because French Open into Women's Queens, into all the grass season has been a whirlwind and so much fun. Yeah. But hopefully a little breath before the North American swing.
Yeah, you could have just said a long nap and I would have gotten it. Like just a long nap. But no, this is the peak of the tennis season, so it's the perfect time, right? Enjoy Wimbledon, have the week after to digest everything. Then, take a little breather and then gear up for the U.S. Open North American hardcourt swing. But there is time for sure. Yasmin Syed, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Can't wait to do it again soon.
Thank you for having me.
That was Yasmin Syed. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. Again, we're available on all your platforms. So if you listen to podcasts on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon Music, wherever, you can just download this show and subscribe to get them automatically downloaded to your listening device. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, at Mitch Michals, for the full video episode of this and all of our episodes with our outstanding guests who know their tennis. For Yasmin Syed, I'm Mitch Michals. This was the Inside in Tennis podcast. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you soon. Enjoy Wimbledon.